The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus went to the district of Tyre and Sidon, and a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is tormented by a demon." But Jesus did not answer her at all, and his disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." Jesus answered, "It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed instantly. The Gospel of the Lord. In today's Gospel, there are two different reactions to this poor woman and her cry for help. The first is the disciples, who know that she's a woman, she's a Canaanite, she's an enemy in their eyes, so they don't even engage her. They neglect her. In fact, they try to get her to leave. And this was right after they heard the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes taught by Jesus about loving enemies. The second reaction is Jesus, who engages her in dialogue, which was risky at that time for a rabbi. But he draws out of her qualities that his own disciples lacked, such as perseverance, humility, and faith. For us today, the woman represents anyone who is rejected or despised, and there's always two ways of treating such a person. One, we can include them in our circle of friends and try to reach out to such a person. Or secondly, we can not include such a person. So the question is, how do we reach out in love to someone who is not friends with us or even very likable? And the answer is going back to the Sermon on the Mount. It's one of those areas of Scripture we should read all the time and meditate on, because it is such a rich teaching from Christ himself. And it needs to be read because we have contrary messages from the culture all the time, shifting us away from its beauty. And, of course, to pray. And that's what this woman teaches us, is how to pray. Notice, she teaches perseverance. She's not put off by the disciples who say, "Send her away, for she keeps shouting after us." Nor when Jesus says, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Rather, she then shows humility because she kneels down and says, "Lord, help me," in the face of that rejection. And Jesus then goes on to say, "It is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." Now that would be an insult. And yet, here she shows her faith. And she turns that little thing around on its head because she says, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Now that was music to Jesus' ears, because he was wanting to bring the Jews and Gentiles together at the same table. That was his mission. And here's this woman who gets that, where his own disciples don't. And ultimately, he's going to confect the Eucharist, which is the table which brings everyone in a common meal with Christ himself. And so Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith." Now, we turn to the first reading and we see how important prayer is, or the lack of it. Because here we have the Israelites right on the cusp of going into the Promised Land. And they're ordered to send out one person from each of the 12 tribes to spy out the Promised Land. They come back with a glowing report. It's rich with fruits and milk and honey, but also it has a formidable population of giants. And 10 of those spies try to convince the people not to enter the Promised Land. Only Joshua and Caleb are the ones who say, "No, let's enter." Now, given that situation, what do the people do? They don't pray. They don't call on the name of the Lord. It says they raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night. And all the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron. So rather than calling upon the name of the Lord, taking the inheritance which God was going to give them, they pulled back into themselves and they bitterly complained. How does God respond? I will do to you the very things I heard you say. Your dead bodies shall fall in this very wilderness, and all of your number, included in the census from 20 years old and upward, who complained against me, according to the number of the days in which you spied out the land, 40 days for each day a year. You shall bear your iniquity 40 years and shall know my displeasure. Today we celebrate St. John Vianney. He was a great priest born in 1786 near Lyon, France. He was ordained in 1815 and became a parish priest of a little village where most of the people were not interested in religion or God, but he served the people, and he was gradually accepted by them and known as a great confessor. He was visited by hundreds of people every day, hearing confessions for up to 16 hours a day. I just brought with me a little quote from his catechism on prayer because it's so beautiful. I'll just quote a paragraph of it. And this was a man of prayer. Quote, prayer is nothing else but union with God. When the heart is pure and united with God, it is consoled and filled with sweetness. It is dazzled by marvelous light. In this intimate union, God and the soul are like two pieces of wax molded into one. They cannot anymore be separated. It is a wonderful thing, this union of God with his insignificant creature, happiness passing all understanding. My children, your hearts are small, but prayer enlarges them and renders them capable of loving God. Prayer is a foretaste of heaven, an overflow of heaven. It never leaves us without sweetness. It is like honey. It descends into the soul and sweetens everything. Let us continue to ask God to help us in that quest of prayer, because we're called to be saints, like John Vianney. And there's much to do, and we know our own weaknesses. So let us ask God for his strength. We might be like that woman who was not put off, who showed perseverance, humility, and faith.